Welcome, everyone. You're listening to Structure Talk, a Structure Tech presentation. My name is Bill Ulrich, alongside Tessa Murray and Reuben Saltzman. As always, your three-legged stool coming to you from the Northland, talking all things houses, home inspections, and anything else that's rattling around in our brain. Well, welcome to today's episode. For those who don't know, Structure Tech is approaching a milestone anniversary. And Reuben, you want to talk about this milestone that's coming up?
Yeah, that'll be the 25-year anniversary of Structure Tech. And, I guess technically we've probably already hit it because my dad purchased this company in June of 1997. So actually we hit it already. We're going to be celebrating during our annual Christmas party or holiday party or whatever. We're calling it our 25-year anniversary party, something like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So we thought it would be fun to reminisce about some of the more memorable mistakes that have occurred over the years. And to help us with this project today, we've invited none other than Neil himself to come on and, go back through the years and try to talk about maybe one or two things that he remembers as being, well, let's just call them what they are, flubs. Yeah. Home inspection flubs.
I asked him to come up with a list, and he came up with a very short list compared to my list. He's been doing it a lot longer, so he's clearly got a much higher batting average than I do when it comes to not making mistakes. But I've got a gigantic list, and we've got so much to talk about. This might be a two-parter podcast. We might have to come back to cover the rest of these next week, but let's see how it goes. And I thought we could definitely start with my pops.
It's not 2 hours of negativity, is it?
No, it's 2 hours of wonderful stories and great lessons for other home inspectors to learn. Whenever I'm teaching other home inspectors how to inspect a house, so often I say, always do this and ask me how I know. And I've always got a quick little anecdote or a story to go along with it about some mistake that I made that either cost me time or money or pain. Probably one of those three.
Or a combination of.
Yes. Yes. Very often it was a combination of those. Good point, Bill.
Yeah. Well, Neil, you've said a few words here in the background, so why don't you go ahead and how you doing? It's been a while since we've had you on the pod.
I'm doing great, Bill. Thanks for asking.
Good.
Reuben hit me up this morning with questions to try and jog this memory about mistakes I've made. And so I got a list going. You ready for it?
Well, are you going to just name them one at a time, or do we want to dissect each of these?
I'm going to tell the story associated with it.
Okay, perfect. Well, let's start at the top.
The first one that comes to my mind is about electric panels. And I was doing an inspection with a friend of mine, and I was so concentrated on talking to him, I kind of forgot to look behind where the screws were as I was putting the panel back on. And of course, we always talk about make sure you look because there could be main wires there and the screw might hit that main wire. And sure enough, it did. And it threw me on my butt in a minute. I didn't know what hit me. I was on my back and the panel was smoking. And that was memorable number one with electric panels. Always look where you're putting that screw back in. So number two, I was training in Malin and we were really trying to be precise in looking at the furnaces, using a mirror, sticking it in there, looking. Well, you got these ceramic igniters. And Malin's got the mirror going in there, and he touches the igniter. And, of course, now we tell people, never do that. Touch the igniter disintegrated. Okay, so now what are we going to do? The furnace won't ignite. He gets on the phone, finds one, is about 45 minutes away. He drives, gets it. It's like $60 for the igniter. Comes back. He's putting it in, and that one breaks. Okay, back on the road. Malin goes, buys another igniter, comes back, puts it in, and then we're safe. So, lesson learned. Don't stick your mirror into the furnace to look at those igniters, and don't get it near the igniter because those ceramic igniters are very fragile.
Okay, well, before you move on to number three, we have to slow down and enjoy these a little bit more. Okay,
sure.
Give me a approximate year when the screw went through the wire.
15 years ago.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Did you get shocked, Neil?
Thankfully, it just threw me on my back. I didn't even get a shock. I've had worse shocks, so electrically. Yeah. but not from inspecting, just from doing dumb things. Yeah.
Okay, were you alone when that happened?
No, I was with this guy that I went to high school. I was inspecting the house for him, and he and I were just talking, and enjoying the conversation. So obviously I wasn't paying attention.
Okay, which of you had to change your underwear, or did both of you have to?
No, he was there for me. So
wow, that's incredible.
It was a little scary, but I lived through it.
Okay, how many more panels did you open after that until you felt comfortable just doing what you normally did?
The next one. Yeah.
Oh, come on.
You learn your lesson pretty quick.
Well, I know you learn your lesson, but I mean, I would have had like a tingle in my spine on every single last turn of every screw until I was walking away and it was safely in place.
You just look.
I got to jump in. I mean, to your point, Bill, there was one time where I was putting the dead front back on a fuse panel, and some of those old fuse panels, they've got it where the fuse socket sticks out. And if you're not careful when you're putting that cover back on, you will short out the cover with that fuse socket and you'll get a big explosion. And I did that once. And ever since then, every time I'm putting the dead front back on a fuse panel, I would think back about it and I just get a little bit nervous, exactly like you're describing, Bill. I would always get worried about that.
Neil, I remember you telling me that story when I was in training about you getting thrown on your butt across the room. And so I was always super cautious when I was putting the panel cover back on to look for wires. But I had a panel cover at a new construction house where just removing the screw to get the panel cover off, it came in contact with a wire and I had an arc and there was this huge flash in my face and this loud pop. And my heart stopped and I thought that I was going to die. And the client was standing right behind me and he had been following me the whole time. And he was a pretty quiet, reserved dude. And I just remember all these curse words flying out of his mouth when that happened. He thought I was getting electrocuted. And I freaked out. I didn't finish removing the panel cover. I left it hanging with two screws. And I said, you need to call an electrician to come out and deal with this. And after that, I was just a little bit traumatized and was nervous taking off panel covers for a long time.
Sure.
Totally understand.
And how do you avoid that, Tess? There's no way to avoid that.
Yeah, you can't.
There's no lesson to learn there.
It's the risk we take being home inspectors.
Yep.
Well, and for everybody who probably gets a sense of Neil's personality, you can see that not much phases him. So if you could see his face right now, it just barely moved an eyebrow. So now he laughs. There we go.
Okay.
All right. Moving on.
So this next one, Tessa's involved with.
Uh-oh.
I don't know if it's so much a matter of a mistake, but just using bad judgment. Remember that two-story?
Using bad judgment?
I used bad judgment when I was training you in, and we put that ladder up on that two-story roof, and we access that roof.
Oh,
and
I remember that.
We always know how easy it is going up the roof, but coming back down is always the sketchy part.
Yeah.
And that was sketchy, right, Tess?
Oh my gosh, I remember that, Neil. Yeah, my hands are sweaty just thinking about it. We were a good two stories up, and it was a hip roof, and it was an old 3-tab, and the granules were just kind of rolling off of it,
sliding under our feet as we went down.
Yeah, coming back
Not
down,
good.
we were all fours, and we.
Of course,
slid
I had
down
to show you how it was done, right?
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. That was a good lesson for me though, too, because it's like, yeah, you can walk up the roof, but can you come back down it? And I'm lucky we got back off that roof.
Do you guys have a safety test for testing if the granules are loose before you put a foot up there?
Not really. Just observation, I guess, and make a judgment. But yeah, it wasn't a good judgment call on my part, but we lived through it.
We did. Tess? Okay. We sure did.
Follow-up question. Have you ever been stuck on a roof because your ladder slipped off or something? You like the granules were so loose, you physically had to wait for somebody to put pressure against the ladder so you could slide to it.
No, I got one that the ladder blew off in the wind. I didn't have it tied to the gutter, and I was up there, and the wind took it down. Yeah.
How long did you have to wait?
Thankfully, the buyer was there, and he put the ladder back up.
Oh,
You're not the
Yeah.
only inspector on our team that's happened to. I know for a fact, Neil. Yeah.
Yep.
So now I've got another bad judgment one. I was doing a time of sale inspection in Minneapolis, and I walk into this house, and it was a very strong smell of gas leak. I should have walked away, but no, I got my double respirator on. I put the mask on. I thought, I'm not going to waste time driving all the way up here and not get paid for it. The house could have blown up on me, right? But
Oh,
I got
man.
through it, and then I called after I was done, but it was a bad gas leak in the house that I did. So I
You
should have
didn't
walked
do
away.
any testing to see where it was leaking from, right?
No, not on the truth in housing piece. No. So that was just another bad judgment call.
Do you have a good nose? Like some people have really good sniffers and you can get in a situation, you're like, yeah, this is bad.
Well, it was good
Or-
enough when I opened the door, I knew it was bad.
Okay.
Yeah, I should have walked away.
Yikes. Neil, does Patty know all of these stories?
She'll hear them.
Oh, my mom is not going to be happy with you, Pops.
So now we go on to the water leak issues, which we all have experienced. So I was training in Malin, and I'm trying to remember. I don't think we used a shower dam at the time, but we were turned on the water at the upstairs shower, let it run, figured give it a good chance, and then we decided to go outside and inspect it while the shower was running. Bad judgment. We came back in, water was running from the upstairs all the way down the wall on the outside, all the way to the basement. And let me tell you, the buyers were not happy with us.
What about the sellers?
I never found out about the cellar. I think it was a vacant house.
Okay,
But-
so what was the problem? What caused the
The
backup?
shower, the drain in that shower wasn't working properly, and it clogged up, and water just ran over.
Oh.
Unbeknownst to us. That's why you never walk away from running water. So that was a very bad experience.
Good life
Oof.
lesson. Good
Yeah.
advice for,
Those are the
Never
things
walk
that
away from running water. Yeah.
never
And
walk away
then-
from running water.
How about this one, Reuben? You'll remember you and I did a new construction house where we ran the
feels
water
bad
in the
already.
shower. And then we go downstairs in the basement, water's dripping out of the ceiling in their finished brand new construction family room, and they're getting mad at us, right, Rubes?
I remember that one. I was thinking about it as you were telling the story.
Yep.
And yeah, they were frustrated with us. However, this was not a shower that overflowed. This was a defect. I will not say that we made any mistake here. All we were
No, we
doing
did
was
not.
running water in the shower, and the builder had not connected the drain properly. There was no way for us to have known that this was happening.
Now, I remember that the plumber cut open and found that the valve was defective. That's my memory.
Was that it? Okay, maybe it was a bad valve. Okay, I might have it wrong, but the bottom line was this was a plumbing error that they
Correct.
made. It wasn't anything we did wrong. The only way we could have known that this was going to happen is if we had X-ray vision and we could see through the walls and know exactly what was happening when we ran the faucet. There's no tool that could have alerted you to this. I mean, there is nothing. So, I mean, the buyers really should have been thanking us for discovering this before they moved in.
Well, and they would have discovered it once they moved in.
They would have, yes.
They would have,
exactly.
yeah.
So what do you think they would have called at that point?
Both the home inspector and the realtor and the builder, everybody. It's everybody's fault.
Yeah. So the last one related to water that I have is should always look underneath the dishwasher before you turn it on to where it hooks into the kitchen sink. Because this one wasn't hooked up. And of course I ran the dishwasher and it ran all over the floor and all over the basement ceiling. It got all cleaned up. But of course the lesson learned is always look before you turn it on.
Did you say that was that a new construction house, Neil?
Not on the dishwasher. This was an old one. Yeah.
Gosh,
Probably a flip that they just forgot to hook up.
I think
So
it's pretty
those are-
rare in an existing house where someone has a dishwasher but the drain isn't hooked up. I mean, what are the
Right.
chances, right? But
I know.
it happens. It's like,
Yeah,
are people trying to booby trap us?
It feels like that
I know.
sometimes, doesn't it?
It
Yeah.
did. Yeah.
Yeah. Or where you grab a doorknob and it just comes off in your hand. And then they're like, what did you do? It's that scene in Tommy Boy where he opens the door and the door falls off. It's like, I did nothing.
Yeah, or you touch the blinds and then they just disintegrate or fall off into your hands. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Now, you broke my blind. I want you to pay for it.
Yeah, it's like they haven't been operated in 40 years.
Right. Come on, you knew it was broken.
Do you guys avoid operating blinds for that specific reason?
If they're closed and you have to test the window, you have to open them. I just have gotten really good about just being really gentle with the ones that are kind of an orangey yellow color that look like they haven't been touched in decades.
Yeah. And
Exactly.
always use two hands.
Yes.
One hand on the string, another hand on the bottom rail to help lift it so the string isn't doing all the work.
Exactly.
Yep.
Question for you, Neil.
Sure.
Have you ever put your foot through the ceiling while walking through an attic?
No, thankfully, that's Reuben's story.
I didn't put my foot through. It was a different body part, and I'll share that when it's my turn to share my list of my top 20 mistakes. I've got so many more. Yeah.
Oh.
Now, although
Did you ever put your foot through, Bill?
I did not, but I accidentally set my foot on top of a recessed light and I levered it just enough that there was some damage around the ceiling, and a painter had to come in and do some touch up. Didn't physically tear it out or anything like that, but it was just, you know how it goes. It was one of those days. So
Yep.
You know, we're talking about attics, and there's one, Pops, I remember you used to share this story related to attics. I remember when you first started getting into home inspections, the home inspection industry was fairly new, and there wasn't a lot of clarity about what a home inspector was supposed to look like. And, you know, the idea was you are a professional, and you're going to dress as a professional. I remember you did your inspections out of a Lincoln Town Car. And you would wear a suit and tie to your home inspections. You'd bring your briefcase that would contain your tools, I think. It was supposed to be a different image. And I remember you telling the story about how you had been walking around in an attic with your tie on, and you put your hand down on the tie as you're crawling, and then you couldn't go forwards, and you just about did a face plant or fell out of the attic scuttle hole because you'd put your hand on your tie. So that was a good lesson. Not that I was ever going to, but if you're a home inspector, don't wear a tie to your home inspections.
Right. Yeah, the image has changed.
Yeah.
how about a bow tie? That would solve that problem, and you could still cast the same professional image.
Let's do it. Let's go, baby. Bow ties for home inspectors. It's the new Structure Tech required attire.
Oh my God.
Oh, I love that story.
That's good.
Yeah. I'd pay money to see a video of someone doing that.
How about testing while you're up in the attic, testing the bath fan exhaust because it's got a big loop in it, just to see if what we say is true, that moisture accumulates in it. So, of course, I disconnected one just to see. Yeah, water ran all the way down into the bathroom ceiling.
Oh, no.
Another mistake. Thanks for reminding me on that one, Reuben.
Oh,
don't ever disconnect the loop.
You don't even need to disconnect the loop, because I did the same thing once. I remember, Malin would remember this house so well. It was a cockroach-infested house. There was cockroaches everywhere. This is when he was in training, and he had to just walk outside. He was getting like nauseous and uncomfortable, and he had to spend the rest of the day outside. But I remember us going in that attic, and it was just gross. And they had one of those bath fans, and it looked like there was water in the duct, and I went to kind of lift it, and it caused all the water in the duct to just dump out of the ceiling fan all over the bathroom floor.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. I've done that too.
Yep.
Don't ever do that.
Nope.
I've just kind of give them a little poke. You can tell if there's water in there.
That's enough. I like your approach, Tess. It's much smarter. Yep. Much smarter than either of us.
Neil, what were you doing in the furnace with a mirror? I mean, what were you looking for with a cosmetic mirror? Or what kind of mirror were you?
A cracked heat exchanger.
And you can see a cracked heat exchanger with a mirror?
We could in previous days. Not so much today because the furnaces are more sealed combustion. But back in the day when they were older and they haven't been replaced yet, you could put mirrors in there and you could easily see cracks in the heat exchanger in the metal. portion of the furnace. Yes.
Yeah, we used to find cracked heat exchangers all the time.
Yeah.
We just don't find a lot of them anymore because of the design of furnaces. It makes it really tough to see them. Yep. I got a good story about that when I get to my turn.
Well, you're teasing everybody. Why don't you just go?
All right, I'll just share this one. We'll go out of order here. We attended this seminar by heat exchanger experts, and they were teaching. I mean, it was really a seminar for HVAC contractors, not really so much for home inspectors. But he's teaching us all these advanced techniques on finding cracks in heat exchangers. And the big way they advocate is you pull the blower motor out of there. I mean, there's nothing to it. It's like you disconnect 2 screws basically and a couple of wires, and you just slide the whole blower out. It's not that big of a deal. So I went through the seminar and I thought, hey, I'm going to do this. Let's go, baby. And I would pull the blowers on just about every furnace at every home inspection, and I would crawl up inside there. And I'd be looking underneath it with a flashlight and a mirror, and I'd spend a few minutes. And if there's a crack, I'm probably going to find it using this technique. And I found quite a few of them until one day I pulled the blower out, not knowing that there's a high limit switch connected to the back side of the blower, and the wires just pulled right out. When I pulled the blower out, I didn't know it. So I get everything put back together and the furnace won't turn on. But it had been on before I did this. So we knew it was me who caused the problem. And I probably spent about an hour troubleshooting this, finally figuring out that there's wires that I should have connected. And I was able to get them reconnected eventually, but what a colossal waste of time. So wow. The big lesson there for home inspectors is don't dismantle equipment. Leave the furnace alone. You're there to do a visual inspection of it. Maybe take the covers off, take the upper and lower cabinet covers off. Definitely do that. And if you're doing combustion testing, go ahead and use a combustion analyzer to test the flue gas. That's all fine and good. But don't be taking stuff apart. That's just going way above and beyond. We don't have repair parts with us. That's just crazy town. So that was a very long time ago. I have never done anything like that since.
Did you share that story at some of the industry events? And did anybody say, yeah, I used to do that too?
No, it's far too embarrassing to share that story publicly. And it's a good thing nobody listens to this podcast either. Because I wouldn't want anybody to know that I'm just foolish.
Wow. Speaking of furnaces and not carrying parts, speaking of Malind, again, too, Malind has made his way into a lot of our stories. I was at an inspection one time where there was a fuse that blew on the furnace, and I didn't know why it wouldn't start back up again. I tried everything, the normal things you try, like checking the thermostat and getting the cover back on perfectly, and still wouldn't start. And Milan's like, oh yeah, I think there was a fuse that blew. He was out there for some other reason, and he actually had the right fuse with him. And he's like, yeah, I just carry these with me. They're little car fuses.
Yep.
And popped it in there. Furnace kicked back on. Problem solved. But I was so great. He was like my little fairy godfather that showed up that day with a little part that I needed. I know.
That's fantastic. I love it. All right. I'll go out of order. I'll share another one because it involves Malind swooping in as the savior along with that theme. And this lesson is never test radiator handles. If the radiator is turned off, just mark in your report that there was no heat to the radiator. Don't go messing with handles to try to get it to turn back on. And I surely heard that in training, but I hadn't learned my lesson the hard way. And I have a tendency of learning lessons the hard way. And so that I would go around and I would do it with impunity. I would just turn them on. I document that it works. See, okay, it works. And then I'd turn it back off until one day I turned the handle on a radiator and it started leaking. And the homeowner was home. And I told him, I said, you got a leaking radiator handle. I went to turn it. It's leaking. And he's like, he just kind of shrugged. He's like, well, that's your problem. I'm like, okay, all right, sounds good. And so I went back up there and I tried everything. I mean, I got my wrenches out. I tightened the packing nut and I could not get this to stop leaking. So I just had to take towels out of my truck. I'd put one towel on there and it would soak up the water and I'd inspect for 5 minutes. And then I'd go back, put another towel on, wring out the other towel, inspect for 5 minutes. I might be exaggerating. It might not have been that bad, but I mean, it was leaking. It would not stop. And I ended up calling Malind. and he was out in the field doing something. I said, dude, you got to save me. I need everything they got at the store. I need magic putty. I need magic tape. I need Flex Seal. I mean, anything they sell on TV to stop a leak, please buy it and bring it to me. and he did. It ended up being this magic plumbing tape that is supposed to stretch and wrap around stuff. And I used the entire roll and I got it to stop leaking. So, but it was like an extra 2 hours that I was at the house. I mean, I'm there way past dinner time. I'm just sitting there hanging out, soaking up water, waiting for Melinda to show up. And he saved the day there. And
did the owner offer you a beer at least for your?
Nothing, man. Nothing. He was not interested in anything I was doing.
You left it like that?
I left it like that. Yeah.
They didn't make you call a plumber?
I told the owner, I said, look, you got this leak. I got it all wrapped up. Don't touch it again. And you're going to want a plumber to fix it. And he's like, yeah, okay, I'll get it fixed. Wow. I mean, the radiator wasn't working before I did this. I mean, it was a bad handle. It was not functional. And now I got it all wrapped up. We are exactly in the same position it was before I got there, as far as I'm concerned. If he had pushed and he's like, well, I want you to hire someone to fix it, I suppose we would have. But I think he kind of understood that, look, this was defective before I touched it too.
And I bet this was before IR cameras as well.
It surely was. Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because now we would not do that. We just use our IR camera.
Exactly.
Very nice.
Which probably tells you more than turning that handle anyway, right? I mean, tells you if there's sort of stratification or something in terms of heat on a unit.
You know what? This could have been after infrared cameras because, I mean, I determined that there was no heat. And so to figure out if it was just a valve turned on or off, I used to operate valves and then I'd wait and see if it heated up. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I guess it wouldn't matter if we were using IR cameras. I was being
You would
dumb.
have gone beyond anyway.
I would have at the time. Never
no
again.
doubt that house was 100 years old at the time too. And those pipes were probably, you start chopping on that tree, it can get in a bad way real quick.
It can get expensive. Yep, definitely. Yeah.
Well, I can't believe, Neil, you don't have any more stories? Do we cover all of your lessons learned?
Well, I'm sure if I listened to Reuben, I could chime in and go, that one and that one. But that's what I came up with in about 10 minutes. So
sweet.
So thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining. We always appreciate the historical insight. And tell me more about the Lincoln. Did you have a ladder rack on top of it or no?
Yeah, no, never had a ladder. We didn't go there back then.
I remember part of the reason you had that vehicle was because it had a gigantic trunk and you could fit your entire little giant ladder in the trunk sideways. It was so big.
Oh my gosh.
So that was part of the reason you chose that vehicle.
Okay, was it white at least? I mean, I know your preference for color.
What was it? It was navy?
Yeah, it was navy.
Yeah.
I thought vehicles could only be white or black, and
It was one of my favorite vehicles ever to drive. It was just, so cushy.
You could do 120 nice. Too, and
you just floated down the road. You didn't even feel the road in that thing.
I drove my grandpa's Buick LeSabre at the end of high school into college, and I remember you'd hit a bump and you just kind of bounce, gently bounce.
Yep. Those were the days.
How long did you wear a suit to inspections, Neil?
It was a few years. Then I finally gave it up. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, what kind of shoes did you wear with
shirt and tie? I never had I don't think I had a real coat. It was shirt and tie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you wear like work boots with your suit pants or did you?
Boy, I can't remember. No.
Penny loafers.
Yeah, probably. Probably, Reuben. Yeah.
Okay, so tell us more stories. What was it like back in the day when you're going out on your first home inspection? Were you guys making it up as you were going, or was there a process in place?
Oh, I made it up as I went for years, Bill. My saying is fake it till you make it, and I think I finally got there after about 25 years. Yeah.
Wow, were you on your own at that point? The entrepreneurial spirit sometimes it just simply amazes me. That fake it till you make it sort of attitude. Maybe I had initial experiences in industry that was just not something you could do. But
true.
Anyway,
it's replacement parts, right?
Medical devices.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not so much.
Medical device had to be very specific. Let's just put it that way.
Yes.
The guy who hired me, Ray Hinch, I love Ray. He pulled me aside one day and he said, "By God, you never answer a question you don't have the answer to." And he said, "So long as you work for me, you will answer only questions you know the answer to, and you will get the answer to those you don't." And I love that. I mean, it was good. I mean,
Good wisdom.
well, yeah, and every industry has its sort of Wild West, so to speak. And, for guys like Ray, who was in it early, I'm not saying they were making things up as they were going, but they were seeing a lot of innovation. They had to answer a lot of questions they probably had to do some research for before they could give the right answer. So,
Hey, Neil, do you have any lockout stories or lost key stories?
I think just one, Tess. Yeah, one.
Oh, you do?
I was doing an inspection and came back and the key was gone, and I left it in the front door. So I think some kids that were driving by probably took the key, and so I had to pay for a replacement key. But I know that I left it in the front door, and that's my only one.
Did they rekey the locks? So
yeah, I was just going to ask.
Yeah, they had to get the keys or the locks rekeyed. Yes.
Wow.
And I had to pay for it.
Oh, that's crazy.
So since then, I've told all the inspectors, don't leave the keys in the door. Take and put it in your pocket.
Yep. And
yep.
And that doesn't work out all the time either.
Because what happened to you?
Yeah, so I had a key. We might have even talked about this on a podcast one time. Reuben knows this story because, well, he got a complaint directly from the seller who called him after this inspection where I had put a key in my pocket. And at some point during the inspection, it came out. And I retraced my steps everywhere. I even went back in the attic. My worst fear is that it came out while I was in the attic because I was climbing over some trusses and in some weird angles. And I thought, oh man. And after searching for like an hour, I finally gave up and I felt so bad. I called the listing agent, just communicate with everyone involved in the transaction, let them know what happened. And sure enough, the sellers pull up after I've left and they find the key in the front yard on their way into the house.
Whoa.
and it had fallen out in the grass in the front yard. And then Reuben, you can tell the rest of the story.
Oh, they read me the riot act about how incompetent you were and what kind of inconsiderate person does this, and she has no business being in this. I mean, just the riot act. And it's like, look, she lost it. She made a mistake. Anybody could have done this.
Sure.
I mean, I didn't defend you like that. I just kind of listened. But I thought
you have to. Yeah,
I could have done it too. What am I supposed to say? We're very sorry. How can I make this right?
Yeah, tried leaving the keys in the locks, but then feeling unsafe having the key in the lock while you're in a house, and then or someone could take it and then putting it in your pocket and losing it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'd say put it in a deep pocket.
Yes.
That's my best advice there. And that's another one that I was going to share is whatever you're doing as a home inspector, use deep pockets. I once had my cell phone fall out underneath a deck while I was climbing around in there because I had put it in my sweatshirt pocket.
Yeah.
Eventually found it. I had my cell phone fall out while I was in an attic. Didn't realize it was missing until I was done in the attic and had it all closed up. And then my phone's gone. And I had the buyer's agent or the buyers call my phone and I could hear it in the attic when I went up there. So they had to call it over and over again because, it had fallen down to the bottom of that loose fill insulation.
Yeah.
So just had to listen for it.
At least you had your ringer on.
At least the ringer was on. It wasn't on silent. If it was on silent, my phone would have just been gone forever.
Gone.
I mean, there would be no finding that. I've lost flashlights in attics where it's fallen out of my tool pouch. Lost a flashlight in deep snow, jumping over a fence or something, and then it bounces out of my tool pouch into deep fluffy snow, and then the search is on for the next 20 minutes. Like, just use deep pockets for anything you don't want to lose because you're going to be bouncing around and leaning as a home inspector.
Yeah, good point. How
often do your tools just fall all over the floor when you're trying to crawl in an attic? I mean, a lot of times you're going sideways or pulling yourself. I'm surprised you guys don't leave more debris along the ceilings of buildings.
Yeah, it hasn't happened to me too much. I've been pretty lucky where I've been using the right tool pouch and stuff just doesn't fall out.
I think you learned your lesson.
Yeah.
Yeah, you learn how to navigate. If you are wearing a tool belt, you learn how to navigate through the trusses with one on. And eventually I just preferred not wearing my tool belt in the attic and stuffing my pockets. Another reason to have a lot of good pockets. You can stuff flashlights and other things in them when you're in an attic.
Yeah. And it's so nice to have those tools in an attic, because you get an attic and it's like, you think, okay, I'm just going to bring my camera and a headlamp, but then you're going to want your infrared camera at some point.
Yeah.
And then you're going to see some sign of moisture, and you're going to want your moisture meter. And then you're going to see some old wires, and you're going to want your voltage sniffer to see if they're energized. And it's just so many other things. And if you don't have your tools on you, there's this tendency to be lazy and just say, I'll take a picture of it. There's some wires, don't know if they're energized or not. It just, you have this tendency to be a lot lazier. So I got to a point where I just said, I'm bringing my tools in the attic.
Yeah.
Okay, so as we begin to bring this to a close, I do want to ask one other question. It's not related necessarily to big oops or snafus, and I'll start with you, Neil. What was the hardest part of this job for you?
I think initially being confident enough and knowing enough of what I was looking at to be able to communicate consistent fact. Because like I said, I felt like for years it was fake it till I make it kind of thing. So initially, I probably didn't know as much as I felt I should have. Where I think now when we send people out that we've been training, they're equipped.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
night and day.
Yeah. I didn't have anybody to train me in. I was just out there learning as much as I could while I was doing it.
Wow.
So
more mental than physical.
Yeah.
Okay. Reuben?
Yeah.
What about for you?
I'd say surely the same thing. Getting up to that confidence level and knowing what I'm talking about, that was probably one of the most challenging things is kind of rounding a corner and feeling like I have business being here doing this. Yeah.
That old thing that like NFL quarterbacks talk about where when they first start playing, it's just there's so much information coming at them. They're surviving, but then they get to the point where the game slows down and they thrive.
Yeah. Good analogy.
Tessa, what about you?
Yeah, I was just thinking, I think it was along the same lines of just kind of like the anxiety I would get before an inspection driving out there. Like you don't know what you're walking into. You don't know what you're going to find. Are you going to be able to handle the house or the situation? What are the clients going to be like? And until you do a lot of inspections, there's just, at least for me, there was this anxiety which came with, it got easier the more confident you get and the more experience you have. So
good answers. I mean, I would think somebody would say heights at some level. Like, I don't want to go on that. It's too steep and it's too tall. But
I think, there are people. Yeah, there are inspectors who definitely are afraid of heights, and this is a hard job if you are afraid of heights because you got to get on the roof and climb up in attics and stuff. And actually, that's the part I like. That's the part I miss.
Is just the physical nature of it, just crawling around and getting out there?
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
I don't know. Do you miss it, Reuben? Climbing on roofs and,
I do. I'll be honest. I do. I enjoyed all of that. Whenever I go along on an inspection with somebody else on the team, I'm definitely up there on the
Getting
roof
on the
with
roof.
them. I'm in the attic with them. I enjoy all that part of it for sure.
I don't miss crawl spaces though.
I don't miss crawl spaces and I don't miss attics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Well, there it is. And Neil, I'm sure you miss the people most of all, right? All the great conversations you had.
For sure. Those are, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, 25 years is a long time. I don't know what the average life of a business is, but 25 years is certainly a good run. And, all 8 cylinders are still firing. So it's not like this is a wind down session or anything. It's just a notch, a mile marker along the way, right?
That's right.
Exactly.
Well, cool. Neil, thanks for giving us some time today. It's always fun to hear the old battle stories and who did what first and how bad it maybe hurt. Thank you. We appreciate seeing you, and it's always fun to watch your mannerisms. They're some of the best ever. So,
thanks, Bill.
Amen.
All right.
Thanks, Neil.
And for everybody else, thanks for listening. You've been listening to Structure Talk, a Structure Tech presentation. My name is Bill Ulrich alongside Tessa Murray and Reuben Saltzman. We'll catch you next time. Hi, everybody. Bill here again with Structure Talk. We really want to thank you for listening to this podcast. It's been a ton of fun for us to put this presentation together. And if you could, we would love it if you would go to any of the podcast platforms where you find Structure Talk and leave us a rating and subscribe to the show. You can also subscribe to our blog at structuretech.com. And of course, you can listen to this show on the internet at structuretalk.com. Thanks again for listening. We appreciate the support. And if you have any suggestions for show topics, please email them to podcast@structuretech.com. Thanks for listening.